Hey everyone. So Earthlings, the movement's history is always on my mind, as you know, and so I thought, well, I'll do a little video about it, and then I thought, I'll do a live stream. I think this is only the second one I've ever done, just like this, just kind of me, as it were. So hello, I suppose you can watch it afterwards. I think it gets recorded. So yeah, the reason that I've been thinking about the history, I always do really, but there's been three things which have really brought it back recently to my attention. One is a new book that's out, and that's about the Oxford Group, which is a very kind of important part of the history of the British movement, and internationally too, in the sense that that led up to the publication of Peter Singer's Animal Liberation. And so you've got, let me make sure I get the names right here. So you've got Robert Garner, who has written quite a few books on animal issues, and Yewande Okuleye, I think it is. So apologize if that's wrong. They put a book out which is called The Oxford Group and the Animal Rights Movement, and it's really quite an interesting account of this lead up and this kind of coming together. People like Richard Ryder, Bridget Brophy is mentioned, but also the other people like Ross and Stanley Godlovich, who put together a book which is called, again, I'll have to look at my notes, hang on a second, Animals, Men and Morals from 1971. I would really like to get hold of that, but unfortunately, I've looked at it. It costs over $600 to get that book at the moment. But it is an interesting archive. I'm sure Kim Stall would have a copy. And so Kim Stall was the other reason why I thought I'd do this, in the sense that there's been two podcasts featuring Kim recently, which are really kind of fascinating. One is on our hen house. So I've put the links in the description, should be there, and also Knowing Animals, which was a recent one. In our hen house is an amazing story about the fact that Kim has got some footage of the 1990 march, which features Tom Regan. And so if you look at what I've got there on the screen, then that's my blog site, and so you can see with that picture there, if you can see it, I know it's pretty small, but just by the just by here with the date, there is Tom Regan, and it's said that the person next to him sporting a beard is Gary Francione. This is kind of when they were both getting on, as it were. What Kim is saying is that some footage, some reel-to-reel film footage was found about this march, and it was found in a dumpster. And so they brought it to Kim for archiving. Kim is almost like the official archiver of the movement now. So that's pretty interesting stuff. And so I thought, well, I'll just go through a few of the books that I have on the history of the movement, which might be quite interesting for people. The first one here is Against All Odds there. Now, the best way to get this, and you can get it free, is if you go to Talon Conspiracy. I'm not sure if it's .com, but if you put in Talon Conspiracy in Google, you'll find it. And it's a whole archive of different things. And if you look down through the categories, you'll see the name Ronnie Lee, and you'll see the name Roger Yates. So you can have a look at things like that. This one is a sociological book about the history of the movement. It contains a couple of errors in a way, but it is quite interesting. So this is Jasper and Nelkin, the Animal Rights Crusade. That's quite an interesting book from a couple of sociologists. This one here is really interesting. This is Mark Gold, who used to work for Animal Aid, and it's called Animal Century. There's some really interesting things in there, including some kind of spotlighting of different people like Kathleen Janaway and people like that. Also, Claire Druce, I think it's Claire. One of the people involved, there used to be a group, an animal welfare group for chickens called Chickens Lib, which is an interesting one. So that's featured in that book, Animal Century. This one is very, very important in the sense that it looks at the prominence of women in the movement, which is a big issue, and it's one that Carol Adams at the moment is talking about, in the sense that there's always this issue of who are the voices that are the most prominent in a social movement. They tend to be male voices, and so that's obviously an issue, especially. Hi, Nikki. And also, speaking of male voices, very prominent, or used to be at least, Gary Francione. This is it's got some history in this book, Rain Without Thunder. This is 1996, and essentially Francione is kind of arguing about how a rights movement is kind of really a welfare movement, that kind of idea in that. Here's one from a professor of history, I think. And this is Harold Guthia, at least I always say it's Guthia, and it's called Animal Rights, the History and Scope of Radical Social Movement. It's very North American based, but that's quite interesting, that one. So that'll be an interesting book. You'll have to watch the recording and pause all these to get the titles. A couple more before I go, and I'll leave you to it. This is Keith Mann's From Dusk Till Dawn. So that really is an account of direct action in Britain, really. It's quite a big book, as you can see. Whoops, quite a big book, quite a read. This one is a smaller book, but it's by Ronnie Lee, the co-founder of the Animal Liberation Front. And so that one's kind of product placement again. Look, this is quite interesting, I think, in the sense that Ronnie obviously talks about the beginning of the Band of Mercy and then the Animal Liberation Front, which was 1976, the same time as Kim Stallwood, I previously mentioned, went vegan. So there's quite a lot of interesting kind of history stuff that's going on at the moment. In one of the podcasts, Kim says that he was kind of looking at what some people were talking about, and they said, "Oh, well, we're looking back in our movement, like the early 2000s." I'm saying, well, hang on a second. There's a heck of a lot of movement history before that, going all the way back into the 1800s. And some of that documentation is really kind of quite interesting, especially the anti-vivisection movement. I first met Kim. I've known Kim for quite a while. I did a podcast with him a few years ago. But I first met Kim when the BUAV, the British Union for the Abolition of Vivisection, it was radicalized around about 1981, I think it was. I became a committee member in 1982 for a year. But Kim was one of the staff there, and he really kind of helped radicalize the movement, really, in the sense that I think the magazine for the BUAV, BUAV is now called Cruelty Free International, I believe, but the BUAV is what we always remember from back then. And what was I going to say? Yeah, the magazine for the BUAV was called Animal Welfare at the time, and he changed it to The Liberator. And at first it was a bit of a glossy magazine, and then it became like a tabloid. It was kind of based on the Daily Mirror, really. And The Liberator was an absolutely marvelous document of the history of the British movement in particular. And you can see that again on the Talon Conspiracy website, which is really good. You can also see a full set of this magazine called The Beast, which was really, really interesting. I've never seen anybody talk about The Beast anymore, but that was really, really an interesting kind of magazine. I was working for Ford's when that came out, and my job was to do certain things to the cars, interfere with the cars as they came flying through. And so I got so good at the job, which I first thought was impossible to do. I got so good at it that I had 12 seconds between cars. I used to read the beast 12 seconds at a time, which was kind of a weird thing to do in a way. But so that's pretty good. So yeah, so Kim has done a lot now in terms of the movement's history, and that's kind of really what I wanted to highlight, because it's really, really kind of interesting. Let me see. Have you read all these good books, Roger? Yes, I have. Yes, I not only have them, I've read them, at least most of them. This one, the first one I showed you, is quite fascinating, because this is probably the only history, not only of the ALF, but of the NAL, the Northern Animal Liberation League, which I was involved in, and also some of the other ones. I think SEAL is mentioned in this, and CAL, that's Southeast Animal Liberation League, and CAL was the Central Animal Liberation League. So there's really quite interesting stuff. Goes from like 70, if I can show you that, goes from 72 to 86. So it's really interesting stuff. And as I said, the full text, the whole of this book, is available on the Talon website, Talon Conspiracy. I think it might be .com, but you can easily kind of Google that and find it. We're hoping that Robert Garner, the main author of the book about the Oxford group, will appear on the Animal Rights Show. And speaking of the Animal Rights Show, we did a nice show about Tom Reagan yesterday, and we've got part 2 coming up next week on Monday at 6 p.m. British and Irish time, and we should hopefully have a pretty nice announcement to make about that particular show. It's not finalized yet, but I'll let you know well when I know, I guess. So okay, well, that's all I really wanted to say. So unless anyone's got any other questions, I shall sign off. And as I said, this is only the second time I've ever done one of these, so it's all a bit weird, but interesting nevertheless. So I'm going to say goodbye now, folks, and you take care. Bye, Earthlings.